This video new in overnight from Portland, Oregon. Police firing tear gas at protesters. These protests have been going on almost daily for more than 50 days now since the killing of George Floyd by police in Minneapolis. But the Trump administration has deployed federal agents in military garb and gear who report to the Department of Homeland Security to crack down on the protests. And local officials are very upset about this, local and state officials, I should say. Salima Shivji is in Washington with more on that. As I said, it's a pretty worrisome situation, ongoing for a long time, Salima, but it seems to be escalating. What is the latest happening there?
That's right, Heather. After more than 50 straight nights of protests, those protests to a call for police reform and have an end to systemic racism, protests that are often peaceful in the day and a little bit more militant at night, those crowds were actually getting smaller until those federal officers and forces were deployed, really adding fuel to the fire there and exacerbating tensions in Portland, really from complaints from protesters that, federal forces wearing camouflage were pulling protesters into unmarked vans, a militarized presence using tear gas as well as batons to disperse protesters, calling them rioters. The protesters over the weekend set a fire to a police union building, and that was dispersed really quite quickly. So those rapid deployment teams really sent in by the Trump administration to protect monuments, to protect statues, courtesy of an executive order from the president. But local officials like Portland's mayor really want them out. Take a listen.
Their presence here is actually leading to more violence and more vandalism, and it's not helping the situation at all. They're not wanted here. We haven't asked them here. In fact, we want them to leave.
Now, state officials are threatening to sue the U.S. Department of Homeland Security as well as other federal agencies for this, basically accusing them of violating the civil rights of some of those protesters by holding them without probable cause, as well as they're looking to seek a temporary restraining orders against the forces. And those tactics as well are causing alarm here in Washington, with some House Democrats calling for further investigation.
I mean, the statements are strong, as you say, Salima. The governor saying a blatant abuse of power, the mayor saying an attack on our democracy. What is the president saying in response to defend the authorization of these agents?
Well, Donald Trump really doubling down on the need for having federal forces there in Portland as well as in other cities, basically on what is a key campaign tactic for the president, really that message of law and order and force, that and the need for it across the country. Trump tweeted on Sunday redressing this and basically heaping blame on local leaders for saying that they had really lost control over the situation after 50 days and what he called, an anarchy and a situation that was out of control. This, of course, as you mentioned, despite really strict opposition from everybody in the state of Oregon, obviously a Democratic state, the mayor, the governor, as well as Oregon's attorney general, who really says that Portland and the city are being used for political purposes. Take a listen.
These federal agencies are operating with no transparency and against the will of just about every leader in our state. And I assume it will be the same in other states where they show up. But Portland is currently the poster child for this administration. They are using us, sort of throwing mud on the wall to see if this is an issue that might stick for the president.
Trump is also clearly trying to link his opponent in the presidential race, Joe Biden, to what Trump calls the radical left and to what's happening in Portland, really as the Trump campaign team is watching the president's poll numbers sink quite dramatically. A lot of Americans unhappy with the president's response over the coronavirus outbreak, and the team really using this law and order message as well as banking on an economic message as they watch those poll numbers with worry 4 months out from the election.
Salima, thanks very much. Salima Shivji is in Washington this morning.